on the lookout for things in our skies. But human beings shouldn't have to speak out for protection. We have laws from governments in place to do that for us by elected people we put in place and by taxes we pay. So always in the back of my mind is they're there to serve and protect us from all foes, foreign and domestic. So for abductees to continue to this day to come forward, I'm just going to give you a few examples of what an abductee is, and I'll talk a bit about my case. And every now and then I'll stop. So if you would like to ask a question, I'll stop. If I can answer it pretty quickly, I will. Or you're free to speak to me about anything afterwards. And I have brought my drawings and photographs with me if anyone would like to have a look at them. So just telling you guys a little bit about me, that was fine. So we're going to break it down to what an abductee is. And so an abductee is a human being taken from their natural setting by an unidentified extraterrestrial species. Not just from here in the UK, but around the globe, there's so much overwhelming evidence of this now, and not just from modern times, but from documented times in Earth's past, where we learn much more each day with each new discovery that we make. Abductees are normally in two categories. They are lifelong or a single remembered incident. Abductees are both male and female and can be of any age. There are some things now found to be in common. So it was my understanding that when NASA, space technology, human sciences, earth sciences, abduction reports, military reports are taken, and there must be billions of them now, what is done with that information? Where does that sit? What is being accumulated? Well, 12 million abductions, but what are they actually doing on a case by case, and what are they doing with the information? Are they just going to keep taking the information? Well, you've been abducted. What are they actually doing with that? So they've obviously found some traits which are scientifically known now to be bloodlines, blood types, highly reported areas of UFO sightings, and the same method of abduction. It wasn't until I was interviewed by Linda Moulton Howe. I met her a few years ago now, and she's a very hardcore lady, very intimidating, and she really gave me, it was bang, bang, bang. She was really on it. That she pointed out a few similar facts to what a lot of people in the US experience, and a lot of other cases. But my first experience I was taken when I was 6 years old. So for me, looking back now, I didn't really want to come forward as an abductee. It wasn't until my late 40s that I had to come forward due to my partner becoming seriously ill. We were both ill. I'll get to that in a bit. And that's the only reason I came forward. I came forward for help, medical help, any type of help I could get. And it was a matter of life and death at the time. And it's a quite serious subject that if the government knows this is going on, and they do, why isn't the public being protected, and why aren't they receiving medical treatment? Why aren't they receiving health? Why aren't they believed by doctors? There are some doctors out there willing to help you, but when you turn up at casualty with huge swellings, injection marks, and they decide that you have suffering from radiation poisoning and put you into quarantine for 3 days, and that gets a bit scary. So contact. Anyone? Any questions so far? Yes, sir.
About what you said earlier about why doesn't the government do anything? Is it because either A, the government does know, no one league with them, or two, the government knows and they're too scared to tell people because there'd be a lot of hysteria or panic and disbelief over it?
Well, one, thank you. That is a very good question. And one, the public, everybody should be asking that. I encourage everybody not to take everything at face value, to do your own research. It is more scary, and people think, oh, you're not right in head. Everything can't be a cover-up. Well, actually, a very good question. And I only tell you people from what I've seen and what I've heard directly from the person in front of me or the being in front of me. So I can't tell you about anyone else's story or what anyone else thinks. I can only tell you what I think and what I've surmised over. So to answer your question directly is, looking back now, and it was taking me many years since I came forward, David Hodgson has really helped me a lot. is I do think the government knows, and I do think to a point that they're either unable to do anything about this, which I think is the truth, and don't want to scare the public. But I don't think really that's the case with modern technology, maybe up to about 20 or 30 years ago. And yeah, I do believe that the government are covering up because they don't want to panic the public, or more importantly, if they've agreed. There has been talk over many years, and I'm more about the modern science now, what is being done today to help me, to help future generations, about the people being taken out, and more importantly about the injuries. I don't know if you know who Kim Carlsberg is. Anybody know who Kim? No? Yeah, Ben knows Kim. So I know Kim, and friends of her on Facebook. She was on, I think it was on Ancient Aliens and about 20 years ago she came out, and they interviewed her in America. She's now having the same problems that medical problems that I've suffered. And let me tell you, being abducted is not about airy-fairy people walked in, said hello, took me to have a cup of tea and showed me all these wonderful things. That has not been my case. I am a type of negative person. I think being abducted has changed me profoundly. It changes the way I look at human beings. It changes the way I look at people, and it also affects the animal kingdom, and it affects us more than people really like to admit or know. Okay, contact. So we are human beings. We are a species. We are male and female sex. So we have other mammals and animals on this planet we can try and train, like dogs and dolphins, and communicate with. So why does human beings think that an alien is going to act how we think it's going to act, do what we want it to do, and come to terms with our laws when they're visiting us? Now, another side of contact is, would you want us, if you just supposing you're an alien being, stop by Earth, just say, oh, I'd like to go and look at that. But then there's a warning sign posted on the moon. Please beware. These are human beings. They will shoot at your ship. They will pollute their atmosphere. They will kill, rape, starve, have diseases, shoot people, have wars, pollute space, pollute the world, and eat their animals. Now, would you want them coming here and seeing that? No. And they certainly would not want you going to visit them on their planet. Now, that's the way I look at it. And there are other attributes not to that. So to think that they are going to abide by our laws, come down and land in the United Kingdom outside the Houses of Parliament, or land on the White House lawn, or in Tiananmen Square, they're not humans. They're not going to abide by our rules. They're not going to abide by our regulations. Contact has already happened over millennia, thousands of years. Every single person that has been taken, that is what they call a contactee. I'm going to break down what contact is now. So if you look it up in a dictionary or a scientific explanation of contact, abduction is contact when any animal or mammal chooses to touch another species or to get within close proximity as to communicate. So when they take you, and that's a choice, they're choosing to take you, either for a biological reason, you've been taken before and you don't know it, or a family bloodline, they're of interest, or I spoke to Travis Walton about the same thing face to face. I met Travis a few years ago. And I believe from what Travis said that I think they took him accidentally. So I think accidents can and do happen. But when they choose to take you and they deliberately lean over you or look at you, that's not to look at you. They lean and look at you so close to see if you can communicate with them. When they look over you, when they come over you and look down at you, that's to see if you can communicate. And when they do that, you stop seeing out of your eyes and you can talk to them, but I'll speak about that in a minute. So when these creatures are close to you and lean over you, they look into your face to make eye contact to see if you can communicate with them. Their faces never move. I've never seen their mouth move, or I've never heard one verbally speak. So they can communicate with you. This is what I call the link or the grey mist. It's like a Wi-Fi in your head, and it is slightly different, like a scent or smell in your head. Just supposing you're anti-pat or a perfume that smelled like baked buns, and you went on one craft and all you could smell was baked buns, you'd know that you were in your anti-pat's house. This is the same. So when you're on a ship or room, you are kind of like the Wi-Fi router, and so are they. This is the only way I can explain it. So they can hear you listening. I need I didn't realise what was happening when I was a child. This grey mist, I used to have a feeling. The first time when I was 6, I had this feeling. I jumped out of bed, really alert. I could hear my brothers snoring in the other room very slightly. And 3 brothers in the other room, and the next room down was my mum and dad, and I could hear them snoring lightly. It was the middle of the night. They had the bathroom and toilet light on. And I felt really alert. I don't know what it was. I didn't feel panicked. I just felt alert, really awake. So I jumped out of bed, took a couple of steps to the threshold of my door, bedroom door, and all of a sudden, it didn't go quiet. I'm not quite sure what happened for a second, but this beam of light just came straight through the ceiling, straight down in front of me, straight through the floor. And it took up the whole hallway, and I've drawn a little picture you can see later. And his face appeared, and it was the face made of light, and it looked like a cross between what I would recognise now as like Socrates and Father Christmas at the time. I didn't really know. This thing shot forward so fast, I turned to run back in my bedroom. The light overtook me, and I don't remember anything. And I was 6 years old, and that was my first ever experience. But that's them choosing to make contact. If they could be bothered to put a face in the light to not frighten you, you know, people think that's a good thing and they're nice, but you've got to think from my point of view at the time, you've got a 6-year-old child, which I was, with a pink nightie on. So these lovely, all bright, all seeing, glowing creatures, people seem to think that are good. I don't know, then maybe they might. They chose to invade our airspace, come to our planet, invade our local airspace, come into my home under the guise of night and take a vulnerable child when they're asleep. Now, is that the act of someone with good intent? No, it's not. So people seem to miss that. They seem to miss the basic things and pick up on these, what I like to call some airy-fairy stories. But, you know, when you're a true abductee, it's those little things that stay with you and last. No, who was protecting me then? If the government knew that they were coming to our airspace, why didn't they send a jet fighter? They had jet fighters in the 70s and 80s. If the local police knew that they were coming, why wasn't the police there to help me? And if my mum and dad were told that they were coming, could they have protected me? Could they have stopped them taking me and being frightened? So people seem to miss that, and it's not till you're an adult that you think about. I know that as a child you don't. You don't say anything. You're so frightened. Was that a dream? Was it real? It's not till you wake up another time, a year or so later, with a bright orange light over you, and you're 3/4 set up on this metal table, and there's a black grid over your legs and you can't move. You're paralysed. You cannot move, and they're drilling like a beam of light was going into my legs, and you couldn't smell the burning, but it was like a burning match going into jelly, and that was happening all up and down my legs. I couldn't do anything at all, and that wasn't the first time that happened, and I was just 6, 7 years old. So if I went to a war zone, say Bosnia, and I went there and I strapped a child, took some child in the middle of the night, just took him, because I felt like it, took him to a local space, strapped him down and started burning holes in their leg, and I thought, I've had enough now, I'll take him back. Took him back to the home and put him in. What would be done to me? Well, first off, someone would make a report. Secondly, someone would believe me. Thirdly, you'd have the police outraged, you've had the militia there, you'd have the UN human rights of torture, you'd have every person in the UN out, and you'd have NATO looking for you. You would be up in The Hague, and they would be held accountable. You would get justice. There would be someone out there fighting for you as a child and your human rights. Human rights don't exist in the general population anymore, unless you're a member of the military, extremely rich family, or you're an alien being. You are not being protected. So, and this is why I feel really angry. It's profoundly changed my life and the way I do look at people. So when they show you images in your head, that is contact. When you're actually in the link, it's two-way. So once you enter this link, you stop looking at your eyes, you can't see out of your eyes, and you can hear inside your head. But they can hear you listening. It's like a two-way mirror. And if like 5 or 6 or 7 of them are close. At first it was like 1 or 2, and I couldn't understand, it was incomprehensible. I got to about 6 or 8. When 6 or 8 are close to me, they have to be pretty close to link. I think once you've linked a few times, I think that's the way it works. Once you've linked a few times, once they're in close proximity to you, you automatically can link. Once there's more than 8 to about 16 of them, it's incomprehensible. You can't understand it at all. And abductees hold so much more information. So when they've chosen to take you, they can take you to any place in their history, any place in time. If you're in their link and you know how to use it, it's so quick. I couldn't fathom it out, but you can see other people. So anyone that's ever said that they've been abducted, when this does come out and anyone can see into their link, you will be able to see every other single person that's been abducted, because they're all in that link. All their memories are stored in like a high mind. So keep that in mind. I'll get to about that, how they store that later. So when they show you symbols, words, it goes through your head like a silver cord. It's so quick. The information they show you is so quick. I just managed to catch the first few things or the last couple of symbols. It's like it is so quick. But abductees do hold so much more information than the government knows. We are an untapped resource of vital information. The things I've picked up along the way is they like our water here. There's something in the water that they like. They can't make embryonic fluid to the same level as a human being. And this is not our home. We did not come from this planet. Something they did to where we lived caused them to bring us here. So they've showed me what happened, and they've showed me it was a one-off situation. I think because I could talk to them, and I'm just surmising now, this is not what they said, I'm just surmising. They asked me if I'd wanted to stay, but it meant I could never come back to Earth, and it was like a yes or no decision there and then. And I think my first thought was, I can't leave my family, and I think they read that straight away as a negative, and it was a no. They don't read, you can't, when you're in a different state in the Wi-Fi, when you're at like 100% and you're in there with them, you can communicate and they can show you things. And I was amazed that I can understand some of it, not all of it. Barely a fraction I can understand. But they read your instincts as a read spoken word. So if I was to say no, but thought, oh my God, hold on, they instantly it would be an instant no. So, and then they just showed me pictures of like the end of the world. They said that I was brave, I was going to die on this planet. They showed me the planet exploding and all this grey stuff and red skies. It was absolutely horrendous. They showed me the end of the world, and that was it. Whether that wasn't, I wasn't going to go with them, or that was really how I'm going to die on this planet, I don't know. But the way things are going, they're probably right. Okay, any questions so far? Yes, sir. Do you want to come up to the microphone?
Probably a silly question, but did you tell your mum and dad, and what was their response?
So the first time I didn't. I did tell my auntie. It wasn't at the time. I woke up the next morning, and as a child you forget things very quickly, but some things stick in your head. Some things do stick in your head, and I didn't at first. It wasn't till probably about the third time they took me. I think I got up straight after, and I had a hole in my leg. There was a hole in the bottom of my leg. It's still there today. And it didn't hurt. It was just a hole. My skin was missing. The skin underneath was missing. But there was like something didn't look right. And I went into the bathroom, and it must have waked my dad up. My dad he woke up and he got. He said, "What, Tina? What are you doing up?" I said, I had a funny dream. He said, you had a dream? He said, what was you doing? I don't sleepwalk, by the way. I've never sleepwalked. Don't sleep talk. So he knew something was wrong because, so he got the old-fashioned detox, dubbed it on my leg, but he didn't. He took me seriously. He went into my room. He pulled my bed covers back. He checked my bed. He checked the skirting boards. He checked my windows, and he said, what type of dream did you have? And I just said that I dreamt that I was flying, and I didn't feel comfortable saying that someone was drilling a hole in my leg, and it hurt, but and they wouldn't stop. So that's not the kind of thing. You don't want to scare your parents, because they look, when you're 6 years old looking at your mum or dad, they look confused, and it's going to sound, I thought that they thought I was lying when, a little podgy white jelly bean man drilled a hole in my leg, Dad. And it wasn't that long after, I had another hole 2 inches above, same thing, white flash of light in my bedroom. Got up directly afterwards. Another hole, woke my dad up again, and he was very concerned this time because it was the same hole, same depth in my body. It's about the size of a match head. And it went in, and it's on my right leg. And I just, people think that's it. But recently, I went to one of the UK's first abduction support meetings run by David Hodgson from the Birmingham UFO group, and he's deputy of ICAR. When you speak to Gary Hesseltine later, he's done a lot of research. He's actually head of ICAR, is it ISA? ISA in the UK, and he goes around the world on behalf of the UK. And David's his deputy, and David Hodgson is the chairman and lead investigator for the Birmingham UFO group. So he really helped me. So he said, Tina, look, come to this group. He said, everyone wants to meet you. It's been 2015 that he started recording my case. And he said, come. And I'm like, yeah. And I've met a few abductees. I also had the pleasure of meeting Whitley Schreiber. They made the film The Communion about him. And he had some comforting words for me. And he was a very nice gentleman. So I met him. He was interested to meet me and speak. But there was a lady at the end I was showing some of my slides to, because you can get the chance. People wanted to see the slides, and he said, I think you should see this. And a lady gasped, and I said, are you right? And she looked like she was going to break down and cry. And I said, please inform me. And she said, no, that's happened to me. I've seen those things that you've drawn. I've been near them, and I've seen them. She said, I didn't realise that there were babies in them. I wasn't that close. And she has the same 2 marks on her right leg in the same place, same distance apart as I do. So I was very relieved. People think you make it up, and it's not. It doesn't happen. And when you've been taken and your partner's been taken, you can't fake injuries on the inside at the same depth inside the middle of your body with a foot-long ulcer and scarring. So we have other medical evidence for that. Okay. So impact and factors. So obviously, as a baby, as a child growing up, you put things behind you, things go by pretty quickly, time flies by, and you learn people either treat you differently because you're acting differently, because you don't want to tell them things, you don't want to make friends, you want to keep your distance from people because you don't know these people might be doing the things that these people at night who come into your room and do. You don't know, you just think it's normal, which is why you don't tell your parents. And people say, it's just like meeting your grandparents, and you know your grandparents. You don't tell your people, I'm meeting my grandparents, this is my grandparents, because you know who they are. When these things take you from a child, you know who they are. You just think everyone else has got the same people in their family. You don't know. So the impact and factors as an adult, and with social structure of abduction, people need to be more aware. So abduction is viewed as a negative thing. It's a negative impact issue for the human race, also animals. But we must look at the whole picture as to why and who, what and who makes a person qualified to say that this doesn't happen when they clearly do. And for what purpose do they say that? Why aren't you believed? If I went out and I went to get a cup of tea at 7 o'clock in the morning and walked past a bank, and I walked past the bank and I was arrested a few hours later for bank robbery, as the person on the inside of the bank looked slightly like me. Now, it wasn't me, but they're a juror, and then you get a witness to say, I saw this lady outside the bank. So she's given you a verbal testimony. She's never written me. She hasn't seen the CCTV. She doesn't know I was inside the bank, but her word is believed over mine, who was out there. I can't understand why abductees are not listened to and believed. It is totally beyond me. So they want it one way in the law and justice system, but not when it's actual fact, and you have evidence to back that up. Abductees have no recourse whatsoever. So you've got nowhere to report it, no help, no medical help. You can't get help anywhere, and no support. And most of all, you've got no one stopping them doing this. You've got no one stopping them doing this to you. So you have no recourse whatsoever. Where's your nearest... you could pick up the phone or the internet and look up the EU. You can dial 999 for police. You could press charges. So you just take me off. Just take me as a little girl again. Take my nightie off me and you put a soldier's uniform on me. Like I said earlier, if I was a soldier and said punishable force came into our country, landed through our airspace, unimpeded, unauthorised, under the guise of night, took me, a soldier, from inside my compound without permission, took me and tortured me and put me back. Again, you would have the generals, the army, the UN, NATO, you would have NASA, you'd have everybody out there looking, everybody fighting for justice. You get justice and they would be out there and they'd be hauled up in The Hague. Why isn't this happening for people like me and other people? Why is that not? I'm a taxpayer, I vote, I'm not being protected. We get to the other impacting factors in a minute, but I could go on and I won't because you're on short time today. Okay, so what about the abductees that have been locked up wrongly? What about the inductees that have had to endure psychiatric evaluations and been falsely imprisoned for coming out and saying it? This has happened. This is another negative. How is the government going to give their lives back and the lives of their family? So they ask rape victims to come forward. They ask anyone that's been abused to come forward, anyone that's been racially abused, anyone that speaks to you badly, come forward. You're believed, you're up on telly, you're right, you're ranting and raving. Yet someone can come into my home, into my country, and take me, and I'm not believed, and I'm not afforded that same protection. Why? What have I done that's so wrong? And I say modern times, I mean, we get to the bit where Americans have actually released it now. They had their little summit last year in June, but they've had a lot more since then, and other countries too. I'm not sure if you're aware, Gary and other UFO people, don't really speak about UFOs, just abduction, will tell you that they're actually keeping a tally of UFOs that they shoot down now. I believe the Americans have confirmed that they've shot 2 down, and the Russians say that they've 3, and China's said that they have a bit more. But they do keep records now of UFOs that are shot down. So if they come into our airspace, they are being shot down, apparently. But I'll let proper people talk about that. So who is on the human side in all of this? Where is the counselling? Where is the protection? And what is being done today to help us? Well, if the military come on forwards, with now that they released and agreed, I think it was back in January and last year, that there have been military abductees, male and female, military persons on duty have been abducted, and they've succumbed to being tortured or test samples taken from them. But they're getting help. They're getting psychiatric help, medical help, help with bills. They're being compensated. They're being relieved from duty. They're given time to get over this. Why isn't that not happening to people? I've still got to go to work. I've still got a family to look after. Life doesn't stop for me. I'm not being compensated. I'm not getting help. I'm not getting the help I should be. I'm not even getting painkillers. So it is a big social divide, and the public are more interested in what the government is saying and being proactive about what should be happening. Okay, so on the other side to this, people have not spoken about consequences and impacting factors. They've been stealing people's sperm, people's ovum, making hybrid babies and clones. Now, I know for a fact that quite a few of them are like me. What happens if these clones that they've taken these babies to another planet, decide like me, I've had enough, hold on, I'm going home? What happens if they leave their planet they're on and start creating havoc in the universe? Or they start coming back to Earth? Who is responsible for that? Who is going to take responsibility for that? Is it going to be the military? Is it going to be the aliens? Are they going to say, well, it's biologically connected to you? You know, who is ultimately going to take the backlash for that? There are questions people should be asking, and a lot more deeper. Any questions so far? Yes, sir. Do you want to come up to the microphone?
It's about something you said earlier about the link, how you could see all people who've been previously abducted by the same people. Yeah. Could you expand on that a little bit more, so how many you've seen?
Yeah, I've seen hundreds of people up there. I know I'm not the only one, and it wasn't not just in the link you get to see it. They don't like it. They can block you listening in the link. What I just call it as. So I woke up one day, just going to give you a quick explanation. I woke up and I was on this bench. There was about 15 or 16 these little ones, to the bottom, over to my left. To my right, the one that knows me, he's never given me a name, and I've got a malpresence from him. Now, I don't see him freak out very often. They freaked out this time. It's the only reason why it really stands out. Now, they either do it because there's so many of them in the room and they don't want to overwhelm you, but they can block you seeing in the link. Now, the link I was in, just supposing it was the baked bread link, I could like the scent in my head, the greyness, but I could feel it was like they blocked me, so I could only hear from me to the one that knows me, and there was like an individual link, but I could feel the others pushing behind that link. There were smaller ones, the real small ones don't connect to anybody, they don't talk to you, they're not in the link, and I'm not sure how they communicate with the taller ones. They obviously telepathically communicate, but it probably might be on a one-to-one basis, I don't know. But when the one that knows me is a single link, and it's me to him. Now, when they're testing you, and it is a test, and believe you me, you feel like a dog on the end of a lead, and if you don't do what they say, it's over in more ways than one. You can guarantee that. But they can stop you hearing the link, and but if you open the link, they all rush in. But the problem with that is you've got a one-way person looking out into millions of different little TV studios, but you've got millions of them rushing in. It's just like a two-way valve. But yeah, you can choose if you know how to work it. I think if you got been there long enough, just from what I glimpsed, and it's beyond our comprehension, but just from what I've glimpsed, you are able to do that. And I've physically seen other people next to me, hundreds of them, but we'll get to that. I have a drawing of that as well, please excuse me.
Yeah, are the tall and short greys, are they the same species, or are they different ones of different agendas?
They're slightly different. So the little ones are about 2 to 3 feet tall. They all look like kind of the same. I don't know why people call them grey. They're bright white. Their skin is like bright white. Bright white. They're like little tiny jelly babies. They are very extremely thin, but they do have a little paunch, and they can be slightly different toned. You'd have a hard job picking them out of a crowd. They all look the same. They're normally about this tall. This one here is probably about just underneath my shoulder. Excuse me again, I do apologise. He's about 4 feet tall, very thin, larger head, larger body, and they've got like apple-pipped eyes, like apple seeds. They look like that. The face doesn't move, no ears, and they're very thin, but their neck is in, like ours seems to come forward, theirs goes straight up, and it's from the middle, and they're very slender, like the size of an anorexic-looking 10-year-old, 8 to 10-year-old. That's kind of what they look like. And I have seen others, but I've drawn pictures for you to have a look at, so that probably gives you a better idea. Okay, so any other questions? No. Yes, sir. No, that's okay. You don't know unless you are. Everyone should ask questions. And even if you suspect anything in your life, get it checked. Yes, sir.
With your abductions,
Yeah.
were all of them physical, or were some of them like biolocation of consciousness out the body?
No, they're physically, biologically, physically taken from...
All physical, okay.
Yeah. And they've been in environments I've not recognised. I've seen people that I've never seen before. They've shown me things that are impossible, but no, I've seen them in my bedroom before they've taken me, and I've seen one different little orangey grey wrinkle. It looked really wrinkled. It didn't look right. That was at the end of my bed, but yeah, I've seen a few things. There's not been airy fairy dreams, and
No.
I've been awake one to one. This, when
No.
you've seen something up close, the horror. When it's 2 foot away from you, or it's leaned over you. Yeah, I've seen them.
I'm not implying the hairy-fairy stuff.
Yeah.
I just know that two things go on.
No, not a hug. No. They've always taken me out of my environment, and it's never been. Yeah, it's never been. Yeah, and just so there is a difference as well, guys. When I was a teenager, a very young teenager, my father was murdered, and I was only just turned 16. So I experienced, God, what's the name of that thing? Sleep paralysis. So people say, you're suffering from sleep paralysis. Well, actually, I've had sleep paralysis. I've only had one really terrible episode. So what happens is, I woke up, I was leant forward on the end of my bed, hanging over the right side of my bed with my shoulder and face down, just slightly off the bed, and I was spread-eagled on the bed, laid down. I felt like there was a terrible presence in the room. Everything was blurred. I couldn't see. Everything was blurred. And I could feel that I was choking, that I could not breathe. Panic ensued, like a panic attack, if that's what it is. And I panicked and lost consciousness. When you're taken, you don't know you can't breathe. You don't know you can't move. It's like a movie through your eyes. And that's the difference. And you can see as clear as I'm seeing you sat there right now. And they've been even closer, like closer as that camera to me. So you can't tell me that when you have sleep paralysis, yes, it is blurred. You do get the feelings, but it is completely different. It's nothing at all like being taken. So you can rule that straight out. It is nothing at all like that. Any other questions? Okay. So this is the human cost of alien abduction. So we're speaking from modern times now, from the times I was alive. We're not going back to the 20s, 30s, 1800s or thousands of years ago. We're talking about modern times. So the real cost of human abduction is the loss of life. People don't really understand and know today that people die from being abducted. I'm not sure if people actually know that. So people have died from being abducted in remote villages. This has been reported. When a light being comes down and takes their loved ones, brings them back down dead or paralysed. Why is this not documented and seen as a direct threat to human life? There was the Colaris Island event back in the 70s. I'm not sure if anyone knows about that. I think it was just after the Vietnam War. And what had happened was an islander, so it's a very remote island. They had Americans there. I think it was a couple of American nurses and one doctor for the whole island. They didn't have a hospital on the island. And what had happened, you can look it up, go online, there's videos about it, YouTube's about it, films about it, it's been well documented, military reports about it, it's in medical journals. It started with a couple of nights, beams of light came down and taken people. It wasn't until a couple of weeks later, when people were found in the streets paralysed, with holes missing from them. They were taken to the local nurse. They thought it was some type of bad magic or voodoo. The lights coming down were taking the people. It then became more serious when they were finding their loved ones dead. They've seen them, like the lights taken through the ceilings, and this was going on. So they took them to an island. The nurse took a boat. I think a couple of days later, took them to one of the main hospitals. She then phoned the military, who then, I think it was the Brazilian military, the Air Force, the American Air Force, contacted the Brazilian military, and they had a military presence on this island for a year. They had loss of life from military men. They had reports, pictures, they fired upon these things. So this thing was basically a mini war on an island no one had ever heard about, with loss of human life as casualties. Now, and you're telling me that UFOs are of no significance? These people had radiation burns. Some of them became infertile. Some of them went blind. Some of them people died. There was another incident, again in Brazil. I think that wasn't that long ago. I think that was in the 90s, late 80s, early 90s, of a soldier on duty. There was a downed UFO. It crashed. And they said that this creature had been seen running in the streets. Again, there's military documentation out there. Don't take my word for it. Do your research. There's notes, reports, drawings, public witnesses. You can even see the film about it on Netflix now. And the soldier grabbed this thing. It's the only thing that he could do, either to stop it hurting people or to keep it safe. Took it to the local hospital. This chap then died. Within 2 days, he died, obviously from a burn or bacterial infection just from touching this creature. So they are a significant threat to life and human people. But why isn't this documented? Why aren't the military bringing this up? Are those families being compensated? Are they still receiving help today? Doesn't look like they are. So what else is happening with the human race? Well, abduction tolls are going up. Well, humans are becoming infertile. More and more people around the globe, and especially in the UK and especially in America, birth rates are on the decline, seriously decline. More people were infertile, more people were prone to ectopic pregnancies. Reports of the low bit reporting that they're taking DNA, sperm and ovum, hybrid clones. So everything is on the down for human beings. So it's not seen as a positive impact. So if you've been taken, you're lucky to have children, because 9 times out of 10, if you suffer, like from me, you've had hair fall out, your nails go black, you vomit blood, you have miscarriages, you wake up one night 9 months pregnant, and then you take pictures of it, go to hospital, and the next day you're flat as a pancake, and the hospital just says it's a result of pregnancy. You tell me what that means, because I don't know. And I have pictures of that. So most of all, we're looking at human rights in our own world, in our own countries, in our own homes and hometowns. Well, if you've got a human right to come to say, you know, they're highlighting people coming across the channel illegally, but they're not, you know, poor people, 1 or 2 people have died. That's terrible for anyone. Any loss of life is not acceptable. Any loss of life. But these people have been taken, mutilated, and put back. Why aren't people screaming out about this? This is what I don't understand. Unless you spoke to other abductees that have been in the same place, I think people are missing so much more. Okay, so you lose your humanity. How we feel, our version of what right is right and wrong. They tell you to speak up and come forwards. They tell you to stand up to bullies. They tell you to tell people when you've been assaulted. They catch predators. But hold on, if you're an abductee, the government chooses to help the perpetrators. They're protecting the guilty. They're not helping me in any way. Most of all, you're losing your right to be human in our own world. We lose our chance to become parents. I'm never going to be a parent now, and I'm never going to have a grandchild. So when I get older, I'll probably die on my own. You know, you don't become grandparents, so you don't have a family line. You lose friends. You live in fear. People lose your jobs. People don't talk to you, especially if they find out you've been abducted. Or, you know, you're either crazy in the head or they're coming for me next. So it's your fault. And, you know, this is about making mankind what's actually the true cost of what's happening to people today. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Sorry if I'm asking loads of questions.
No.
I heard in the 1950s, Eisenhower, who was the president, signed an agreement with these aliens it's called the Grenada Pact. I think it's called something like that. And that the agreement was that in exchange for abducting humans, the US military would gain hold of advanced technology. Do you think the British government may have signed a similar agreement, or all the governments of the world went along with it?
Well, I recently spoke to Eleanor Eisenhower, his granddaughter, because I do a YouTube on a Tuesday radio show between here and Hawaii. And so she seems to think that is actually true. She said that, you know, they had papers, she had conversations and things like that with her parents directly. So anything's possible. Again, I wasn't there. I don't know. I have not seen a document. But I'm going to say that's probably a big yes and probability. But until you've got like evidence, what they say to abductees, where's your evidence? Then, you know, I can't make a decision. But my assumption is that would be a big yes. Okay, any other questions? Okay. So lifelong health problems and effects. So lifelong health problems are very painful. You get infertility and not being believed by doctors. You have the trauma of being abduction, the trauma of being tortured, waking up in the middle of the night with some operation that something is hurting you by creatures you've never seen. You've had your babies taken from inside you. They steal your eggs and sperm against your will. This is the true horror of abduction, that you are totally defenseless. Nobody's helping you. Nobody's saving you. There's Rambo's not coming to help you. The mental damage and biological damage it does to humans. So again, being abducted is not a good thing for your health. Who to trust? Well, who do you tell? So many people don't come forward because of that reason, because they're ostracised. I've seen hundreds of other humans up there, so I know I'm not the only one. I have seen literally hundreds of people. Planetary effects. So this is other things. Every time someone like me gives a speech, not about other people's issues or theories, about what's happened, people should be asking questions. And they should be asking questions to their local MPs in environmental groups, because this actually affects quite a few environmental issues. So planetary effects. What damage is done to our world, our ozone, our airspace, our atmosphere, when these ships come into our space? They got to cross the Van Allen radiation belt. So if they're interdimensional, they're punching holes in our biological world, which means if I was a balloon and I punched a hole in a balloon, it would burst. If I punched a hole in water under it, so is it taking oxygen from our planet? Is that causing us global issues? Are they poisoning our oxygen we're breathing with radiation from their ships or the dimension they're coming from? Then they crash in the ocean. Are they poisoning the ocean from the debris from their ships? Are they killing the fish? They're using our water, they're taking our water up, and if they're living under the ocean, are they damaging our fish? Are they damaging our biodiversity? Are they bleaching our oceans? Where is it on the micro level of that? Where's the microbacteria on ships coming from them, coming from their waste, coming from their energy? Where's the environmental impact on that? If I opened a can of beans and cooked it on a cooker outside, I'll be probably breaking 25 environmental laws. Who's looking at the bigger picture? You've got jet fighters up in the air. The cost of fuel in the air to shoot one of these things down. Where's the environmental impact on that? Anybody tell me? No. Oh dear. Hello, Mum. So there's lots of other things to think about that goes along with that. So where are these protesters now? So even they put astronauts in quarantine when they come back, they hose down space shuttles, precautions are in place. These things, when they're taking you, coming from an unknown destination into our world with any bacteria on or any damage to our ozone, don't you think that's more important? Any questions? Yes, madam.
I just feel that the government don't want us to know, and they don't want us to know the truth. And that's why all this is hidden.
I don't think, well, now it's actually coming about because I think they've been forced, they've been overwhelmed actually to by other things that are happening. On one of my last times they took me, they told me that they couldn't come no more and that the others were coming. They're not supposed to, but they do. So perhaps they're just worse than them. So I don't know what they mean by that, who they are on about. I've never met them. I don't think I want to meet them, but perhaps there are other issues at hand, forcing their hand now. And so many people have come forward and they're not having it. But again, we vote these people in. We vote them to tell us the truth. If they're hiding simple medical facts from you, or, how do you know you're not in danger? You send your kid in, let's go on holiday and let's go and swim in that sea. Do they tell you that like 2 months before that an alien ship crashed in that water? Is your son or child being exposed to radiation swimming in the Mediterranean? Are they? Gives you something to think about. Other cases and evidence from the government. So there are other fully investigated accounts, as we said earlier, the US United States Air Force in Brazil. Again, the military witnesses, this is just, I've chosen Brazil because they are more open than the UK government. And some of the UK findings, by the way, I believe there was is it the Brecon Beacons? 2 SAS soldiers a few years ago found a van at the top of one of these mountains. A couple of kids went cast a guard post at the bottom in a van, up to no good, drove up the mountain to have some alone time together. They found the van about 2 o'clock in the morning, and the roof was missing off the van. Both the front seats were missing off the van, and they found 2 bodies stripped to their skin, laid by the side of the road at 2 o'clock that morning. There was a search done for a couple of days. That wasn't highly publicised. I would have thought that would have been up and down England, but that's not the only case that's happened up on the Brecon Beacons mountain. So there are other things that do go on in England that they don't like sharing with the public. Again, Brazil was very open. They're very forward with it. I think Russia, apart from the war, was starting to get there now. They're publishing things. So it's not just that. It's those kids' families that have gone missing and those dead bodies, they had to get a DNA identification to find out who they were. Those poor families, are they being told the truth? Who's identified that? Are they being compensated? Goes to show you. So what could take two very young middle-aged people in their 20s, rip them through the top of a van and skin them and put them back on the side of a mountain? So again, in 1977, the Colares Island incident, again, we've been over that. And 1976, so the Barrasso incident in Brazil was Luis Barrasso Fernandes was a farmer. He suffered an encounter and he was actually burned. This thing, they didn't actually take him. It was in his yard, I believe, in his farmyard. He went out to see what was scaring his animals. He got too close to this thing. It burned him. He suffered severe burns to his body. Apparently, he got younger. Over a few weeks to a few months, he got younger and died of radiation poisoning from burns from being too close to this machine. So not only do you have facts, you've got biological facts, you have evidence. You've got evidence from the public, the military, families. Go out there and look at it. 1996, again, Brazil. A UFO was actually shot down. So the American Air Force Base was asked to send 2 fighters out over Brazil. They helped out the Brazilian Air Force, and they actually shot a UFO down. It came down, and 2 sisters, just aged 14 and 16, and a 22-year-old nurse came face to face with one of these beings. All 3 of them described it, and I believe 2 of them suffered injuries from that. I'm not sure what injuries they were, or if they have lasting effects, I don't know. But guys, look online, look the cases up, and there's a lot more. There's a lot more even diplomats and their wives come forward to say that they've been abducted. So, any questions? So, amazing thing happened in 2010. So, yes.
Hi, Tina.
Hello, Ben.
Yeah, I can't help noticing that Brazil seems to get more than its fair share of the particularly nasty cases. Is there a reason for that?
No, I'm not a ufologist. I think Mr. Heseltine's the best person, Gary, could answer that, because he's head of ISA for the UK. But it's my understanding that these beings, from what I learned from being taken, they like water. They like our water specifically here on this planet. For what reason, I don't know. There's something in it. But they're drawn to volcanism, and they're also drawn to what I believe is either a bloodline. So unless there's a load of volcanism near Brazil, something different in their water there, or it's a place of interest for them, it's got to be one of them. So it's a... Sorry, Gary? Yes, Ben. Anything else? No? Okay. Let's move on. So in 2010, something really good happened. The United States came forward to say that they've actually collected data. So since Project Blue Book stopped, which is people could go forward in America. Again, not in the UK. We had MI15 for that, I believe. You could come forward and make a report, and someone would investigate it. Now, it was from after Project Blue Book to modern day, is my understanding that no military, no government body was keeping counts of abduction, maybe UFO reports, but nobody was taking reports of abduction. So it turns out in 2010, after a Freedom of Information Act, it wasn't against the government, it was against the Department of normally it's the US government, but it was the department, somebody obviously knew what was going on in one of these departments and put a Freedom of Information Act in, and they released full effects. It's a thick report you can go and get, and you can apply for it now. It was released, and this is on Fox News, so if you go to Fox News online, look up 2010, you can see this page. I took a clipping from their video. This is what this is. This is not my footage. This is from Fox News. They sent a reporter there, and they looked into it. There's a 1,500-page report from the Pentagon. Department of Defense released it. Said that just from 2010, abductions were going up. Now, who are they studying? If abductions don't happen, people are making it up. There is no consequence to life. Nobody can hurt you. So who are they? Where are they getting this information from? Who are they compiling these reports on? So that's 1,500 individual people and cases of radiation burns, paralysis, brain damage, sexual encounters, and abductions. So that's just released. And for people who don't know, my mum has a brain tumour. She has an inaudible canal left-handed brain tumour, but it's not growing. It's stopped growing for some reason. They don't know why, and it's measured every year. My Auntie Pat has a very rare, different type of brain tumour, not related to anyone else in the family. Again, that's grown. She had a bit of treatment on it, but they don't know how she got it, and that also is not grown. And 2 years ago, my mum was diagnosed with terminal lung cancer, and she's still with us, luckily, today. They don't know why she has 2 nodes in her lungs. They thought one was scarring, but the second one was lung cancer, and it has not grown. It's just popped up a lump and has not grown and shown any signs. So being taken does have effects on you. It just depends on what they find. By the way, these are all just surface. Because if I made a report, and someone made a report in the States, they'd have to take them in and give them brain scans, and then you're into how many people did they scan. If they scanned 1,500 people in reports, this is just in one document, 1,500 people. Any questions? Because, yeah, Mr. Nick Pope, yes sir, come forward. I'm running out of time, guys.
So I think I've forgotten.
That's okay. So I've also met Nick Pope a few times. Now, the government knows the effect of contactees, okay? How long have they known, and from who? How many people have they compiled these reports? And why not treat the abductees? Why not, like, they've taken me in hospital, given me scans, but they haven't treated me? Now, it causes burns, which I've suffered, and it also causes brain damage. So, and anyone that's been abducted can have a scan. And if you have a scan, it can tell you. And so being close, this again is from this is from Fox News Nation. Guys, go online. You can watch their videos and all their reports, things like that, straight from America, up-to-date intelligence. So there you go. So this is taken... Yes, madam.
Just going to ask, anybody else in your family, have they been abducted? Do they know? Or is it just...
So I have a number of quite complicated medicals. One of my brothers was diagnosed, he's 6'8", very large gentleman, with Parkinson's at the age of 30. They said that he showed signs of symptoms of Parkinson's. They couldn't diagnose him. He was too young, and they couldn't officially put him on the medication because you have to have Parkinson's to go on the medication, but they was giving it to him anyway. They said he had some type of nerve damage to the brain, but couldn't figure out what it was. My other brother has a rare condition called sarcoidosis that affects the lungs. My other brother has a heart condition that they don't know what it is, but it's something wrong. I suffer from bradycardia and hypertension, and I have a huge tumour behind my left eye. There's something in it, and it has scar tissue with a bit of metal. It's inoperable, but I've got scans and pictures of that as well. I've had to have a hysterectomy, and they found... I'm in a legal process of trying to obtain the film of my surgery, because when the doctors come out and my discharge notes, which you'll see later, says that my pelvis is completely obliterated from right to left with thousands of needle marks. That someone has stabbed They wanted to know if I'd been abroad and had surgery anywhere. They said my amount of internal damage was horrendous. I had 267 stitches. It was a 3-layer cut and 22 staples and a drain. My surgery is supposed to take half an hour. It took over 8 hours because it's just supposed to be a simple hysterectomy. So I've had a lot of other maternity things, and funny enough, all the places where they've burned me on my legs, I've had huge issues with bruises and other conditions like that. My Auntie Pat said as an 8-year-old, she woke up one day and she has holes in her tummy. It looks like someone's gone like that with a stamper over her tummy. She's got holes all over her stomach.
You can't remember being abducted?
No. Just you. My brother said he had this weird dream of this giant trying to come in through the window, and he was screaming, and there was 2 humans running for their lives, and we thought he was crazy. He screamed the house down. And on 2 occasions this happened. My dad moved him away from the window. He said, the lights come in, and he said, what do you mean the lights come in? Just put it to one side. And then it wasn't until about 32 years later, my next door neighbour, I think she must have been about 50 at the time, came in shaking like a leaf, and she's from Grenada, by the way, shaking like a leaf, and said, you never guess what I've just seen. She said, I woke up and there was this huge thing with a bright white light trying to get in my house in the night. And she was terrified. And that was next door. My mum said, look, calm down. After we calmed her down, give her a cup of tea, she had a cigarette, and my mum told her. She described, we hadn't told no one, she described to me and my mum exactly the same thing that my brother had drawn and seen years before. So take that what you will. So yeah, there are people who now say they've been abducted. So next time you go for a brain thing, and they said to me, "You've got a part missing in the back of your brain." This is when they put me in isolation when I had sickness and jab marks on me, and they just put these yellow suits on and rushed me into quarantine. That was at Southampton General. They said there's a sac at the back of your brain and normally has fluid in it. Mine didn't have any fluid in it. They thought I'd had some type of... people came down, but before they could come down, they rushed me into an isolation ward, and they knocked me in the room. Very nice, with a pot. So, Other evidence. I've brought my face out because I've got the pictures at the back if you want to see them. So just going to leave the mic for a second and show you. So this first set of pictures, what happened was I had to get a passport done one day on the way to work. And I didn't, it's just like this, you couldn't see, there's no markings on my neck on the way to work. And I was on the afternoon shift and I was working. And I said to my mum, we go to Bitton post office. I'll take my mum up to get her pension and I'll get her there the old-fashioned, this is West End Road in Bitton, it's in the post office, it's still there today. And I went in, put my £4.75 I think it was in, had my pictures done, and my mum was walking around the shop and it's going to take a minute to process. All of I hear my mum swear, she's like, what the F? And I'm like, Mum! I thought, oh my God. Run round, because I was looking at sweets and magazines, run round to where this machine was. And she had this in her hand, and as you can see, I have black marks here and here, and bruising, and this side here, and under my chin, and to the side of my neck. So she said, no, and she pulled my hair up, she's looking at this, she goes, nothing on you, nothing, she goes, there's something wrong with that machine. So we quickly exited the post office at Bitton, looking a bit crazy. Got in my car, drove to a place called Woolston in Southampton. It was like literally 10 minutes on the same road, straight down the bottom of the road. Woolworths was there at the time. Went into Woolworths, they had a machine right in the window. I thought, here we go. Got some change, paid the money in again, and my mum stood by the machine. She wasn't leaving the machine. And so and I had them done again, and they came out exactly the same. She said, that's it, you're not going to work, you're going to the doctors. I phoned the doctors, they couldn't see me till the next morning. I took the pictures in to my GPs, and I had 2. And I said to my doctor, I said, I don't think I'm very bad. I said, what's the matter, Tina? I said, I've put the picture down. Now, he didn't look shocked and he did not touch the picture. He got a pen and pushed the picture back to me. I said, I can't take that. I said, can you tell me what's wrong? And he looked at me and said, do you have a sore throat? I said, no. He said, I'm just going to examine you. He looked in my eyes, my ears, my throat. He touched my neck, under my arms, my head. He touched my hair. He said, technically you should go to A&E to have an x-ray. He said, but I cannot send you to A&E without pictures. If you tell me you had a headache, then I'll gladly send you. I said, I don't have a headache. You know, I can't say I did or I didn't. I said, I don't feel great. He said, well, let me tell you now, you get pictures like this from deep tissue wounds. I said, it looks like I've hung myself. He said, no, it's too low for hanging. He said, you get that from operations. He said, when people have operations, you get damage underneath the skin, so it's so far underneath the skin it doesn't come to the surface of the skin. It's like a deep tissue wound. You can only get that from operations. So he said, to make sure it's not an effect to the camera, I said, well, I'm going to leave that with you and I'll take one with me. So this is my GP, and I've got documented notes that I want to see him. Now, he said, my advice to you is, I'd go back there. He said, you probably got other marks on your body. Well, I wasn't about to stand in Woolworths with no clothes on. He said, Tina, go back. He said, put your hair up so you can see better around the sides. And after, he said, leave it at least 4 to 5 days. He said, go back. Yes? Oh, sorry. 5 minutes. Sorry. Oh, yeah. Go back after 4 or 5 days. He said, take another picture. If the healing looks reduced, he said, then don't come back to see me. He said, that's signs that it has happened. He said, but you're recovering. Took it and went back, and you could just slightly see it had healed. So not only had it happened, it's evidence that it was healing. So I'm going to jump forward a few more. So I'll just jump to the pictures now. So one morning I woke up with 3 marks that's still there, like needle marks in my hand, that's still there, and a hole. The hole in my breast was when I woke up. I went to bed, woke up with this bright white light, and there was 3 beings stood this side of me. The one that knows me here, they had something on my tummy, and this thing was touching my chest, and blood spat out and it hit it, and it freaked out because my blood had touched it. He stopped me from hearing what was going on, and it ensued from there. Now, this is my hospital notes. There you go. And on the second, if you look at the second line down, it says on there that my pelvis is completely obliterated with adhesions. It was from right to left, left to right. And that's what they found inside my body, on my pelvis, on both of my pelvises, is completely obliterated with holes. Now, so the other cost of when you do it, this is my thing. They said they had to open me right up. It says not like a usual hysterectomy. But they also found in me, which I have the documentation for, they found a device inside me. And I've been trying to have IVF till then. I had regular scans because I had ectopic pregnancies. They said they found some type of intrauterine device. They couldn't identify the device. They couldn't produce it in court because my solicitors took 2 years to get the paperwork and my medical records, but we've run out of time. So I wound up having 267 stitches. There you can see the staples and the drain in my stomach. So yes, that does hurt exceedingly well. And when they cut all your stomach muscles, everything hangs because they never put your stomach muscles back and sew you up, so you're damaged for the rest of your life.
Did you ever get the device?
No, because it's no. You have to no, because apparently it's incinerated. They don't keep it. But luckily, my hysterectomy was recorded, so I'm after the recordings. Until now, they've said no. It went to an independent, where the bar of medical doctors get together and they go in. I wasn't allowed to go in. My solicitor, who is a surgeon, went in, and because other people don't give their consent on the tape, I'm not allowed to have it. But I give my consent to have it, so I'm not sure how that works. There you go. Because I'm after the A&E tape as well from when they took me against my doctor's will into quarantine. So I woke up one night and pain in my leg, and my leg there is actually glowing. It doesn't do it justice. The inside of my leg was glowing red, as you can see there. I went to hospital and they gave me antibiotics. They said they didn't have a clue what had gone on. They just put it down to some extreme rare bacteria inside my body that was glowing red. Lasted about 3 days, and I looked like Rudolph. So yeah, and it did stung like mad. And other surgeries and things I've had to endure because of my little adventures out at night. Now, I just quickly, before I go, so this one here is 2 separate reports, a week apart, as you can see. One was me and one was my partner. One night, I woke up, this is in my mid-40s, early 40s. I woke up and my eyes bulged forward. There was a blue-green light in my bedroom, and my blanket was pulled back. I was in a fetus position on my right-hand side, and my partner was gone, and there was this thing. I'd never seen it before. It was no bigger than my bedpost, skinny as you like. His head looked like a biscuit tin with a bandage around it. I couldn't see the face because of the way it was stood, and I could not move. I couldn't blink. My eyes popped forward from like a blackness, and I just stuck. So literally, it was just in my field of vision. And it bent down forward, and it bent not like a human would. It like his hips were like, the bending motion wasn't quite right. It was lower than where our hips would be. And it looked at my three pictures of my huskies next to my bed, and I had some dolls. And it bent down to look. It did not want to link with me. The second it realised I was awake, it didn't move. And the next thing I know, it's late in the morning. I'm never really a late sleeper. And, excuse me. And I woke up. My partner's actually sat up in bed next to me, holding his throat. And the first words out of his mouth were, "My throat hurts, my bottom hurts." And I thought, oh Christ, do I tell him what I think's happened, what I've seen? No, it's just, we've both had a bad written, and I tried to put it out of me. Within a couple of days, he became very ill. By about 4 days later, I had chest pain. I started vomiting blood, and I don't mean, it was like the Exorcist type of blood. I was stood in the hallway and I reached the toilet in the bathroom before I even got there. Chest pain, tummy pain, I was having diarrhoea, nose bleeds, headaches. Went to see my GP, so it's recorded with my GP. Partner was the same, and he's like, oh, I don't know. He said, probably a virus or something, give me some antacid, sent me home. Within 2 months, my partner had lost 3.5 stone in weight. He was also vomiting blood. He was not in a good way. Went back to see the doctor, and he said, well, I'll send you, Tina, off. You know what men are like, you've got to drag him back. So he referred me to have an endoscopy with camera down the throat. And I took my partner back a week later. He'd also by then lost nearly 4.5 stone in such a short time. Having chest pain, and having tummy pain. Now this is a Professor Brian or Brown, I think his name was. And nowadays you go in and they call you in and you can lay there without sedation and you can see it on a big screen. So I laid there and he spoke to me and he said, what's the problem? And I told him, I said, I'm vomiting blood. I've got terrible pain inside my tummy. He said, and I said, no. And he said, we'll have a look, Tina. So I'm there and he's putting it down. He says, yeah. And also he stops. He's like, record this, get pictures of this, get pictures of this. He said, get samples of that. He said, what is that black stuff? He said, normally if you've got an ulcer, it's like a certain type of black or they can tell what colour. It's a different colour. He said, I don't know what that is. He said, I want pictures of that, and that. And then he came out and he said, we're going to start you straight away. They give me some tablets to take because then he sprayed my throat with some stuff. he said, I want to see you in 6 weeks. He said, I'm going to write you another prescription, take home, any other vomiting and that. He said, come back and see me. He said, I'm not sure what's going on. He said, I've never seen that. He said, but you got a huge ulcer, scarring. He said, scarring. He said, have you been on holiday? Like, no. He said, so the little crosses on there is scarring tissue, the depth inside your body. So it's a good foot down inside your body. So it's not, you couldn't get anything in it. It's actually inside the middle of your body. He said, fine, go on your way. And a week later, same department, I'll go in there and I go with my partner, and Professor walked by me. He said, Tina, he said, I saw you last week. He said, what are you doing back here? He said, you're not having problems, are you? I said, no, you're actually seeing my partner. He said, what? He said, what's the matter with him then? I said, he said, is it sympathy pains? I said, no, he's got what I've got. I said, but he said, he does look on the bit of a thin side. He wasn't much of a talker, my partner. And he said, you both live together? He said, yeah. He said, when did you start both developing the symptoms? I said, from the same night. From the same night, we both had the same symptoms. He said, tell you what, Tina, stay there. Took him through. So at the end of each one, they give you a yellow printout. So that was my printout, and that was his. He has the identical scarring at the same depth down inside his body, which caused the same damage. But they told me that they think he has liver cancer. They told us to hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. He's never seen anything like it. We had to go home, come back 4 hours later, have blood test scans and x-ray. And to this day, his health still deteriorates. He looks like a skeleton now. He's about 7 stone. He looks so ill, and they don't know what's wrong with him. They keep telling me that he has cancer, but they don't know where. And then the other thing is, so when you wake up... Sorry? 1 minute. Oh, but go... so just a quick pictures. We'll end on a few pictures, like when they draw your teeth and your teeth fall out, or when you hit your leg and you get bruising like that, or you've really got your vein explodes in your leg, or when they drill holes and you get just on the right hand picture there, you can see where that bruising is an actual lump that's still there today. It's like an egg. I wake up about that little beauty one day. They said it's not the joint, they don't know what it is that's there. Or your leg, when your leg swells up to the size of your other leg and you get black bruising on, and there you can see the 2 scars at the bottom of my body. And then imagine you're being 40 years old and one day you wake up and you're 9 months pregnant. And then you go to A&E and they look at you and they wheel a delivery cart in saying, you're going into labour. And I'm like, I've had a hysterectomy. I'm nearly 50, I'm 50 years old. I said, I've been on HRT for 10 years. I said, I'm not sure what's happening. So they're like, yeah, we don't know. They give you a scan, or it's a result of pregnancy. I said, what do you mean result of pregnancy? So that's all I can say, it's a result of pregnancy. And they sent me home with antibiotics, and the next day I was fine. My day after, actually, it was flat as a pancake. But they've taken me off HRT since, which is why I'm a bit chubby now. But before that, I've got pictures of me before the day before that. So it's a bit of a shock when you're 50 and you wake up, none of your clothes will fit. Any questions? I've got to leave it there. I had so much more planned, but couldn't even get to that. Any questions before I go? Yes, sir. Make it quick. Yeah.
What do you know the name and the planet of these aliens who take you?
No. Oh. They showed me planets where they're taking me to. I've seen other planets. They have a huge ship the other side of Jupiter. They have clones on these ships, millions of baby clones. That's a symbol for male and female. This is what I call the travelator, where they've seen me on there. I've seen hundreds of people on there. Pictures of some of the beings that have taken me. These are the black pods where they kept my babies. And they show me their energy. That's their energy. They show me how they use it and how they reuse it. They put a spider inside my head so I wouldn't remember. And I woke up. There's one of the needle marks in the back that the hospital couldn't explain. Woke up with that triangle stamp inside my thigh. That was a few years ago. Had to remember the number 1359. I doubt myself. I don't know what the hell that's about. That's the Jupiter, where they took me there, and where this thing was. It was not man-made. Humans couldn't make that. It was absolutely enormous. They had babies on these ships, and I've just put on there, not pictures, but that's my presentation. I had to rush the end. There's loads you didn't get. I was like halfway through, but if you see me at the end, I've got drawings up there. You can come and ask any questions in the interview. But for me, that's been Tina Byers here at Bases today.
Everybody, thank you very much.